All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is section 4.5, day 3, and I'm coming to you from the beautiful city of Las Vegas. I'm down here for my nephew's graduation, and, I can make a lesson here online at any time. So if you see anybody walking back and forth and back of me, one of them will be my wife, Brenda, and my sister-in-law, Jana. So there's Brenda and there's Jana. And how nice of them to wave now. Get out of the way. I've got teaching to do. All right. Stop. All right. So our first examples, I'm giving you two examples. One's a simple one that started with your first two problems on your homework, and then the last one kind of follows the last four problems. All right, so first one, write a polynomial function f of least degree that has rational coefficients, a leading coefficient of 1, and the zeros 4, 3, and negative 2. So what we're doing here now is we're starting with our answers and we're working back to get our equation. So that's what we're going to do here. So on this one right here, they're telling us that our zeros are 4, 3, and negative 2. So that means that we know that x is equal to 4. We know that x is equal to 3. And we know that x is equal to negative 2. Now, remember, that's our answers. So if we used the zero product property, we would have x minus 4 is equal to 0. X minus 3 is equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. So remember, I'm moving this answer over to the other side and changing the sign. So now remember what we're doing there, then we're going to have x minus 4 times x minus 3 times x plus 2 is equal to 0. So now we started with these here in section 4.2, I believe, where I would take these two and I would multiply them. So let's go ahead and multiply those two. We're going to FOIL it. So the first terms are x squared. Again, if I take the outside terms, I'm going to have negative 3x. If I take the inside terms, I'm going to have negative 4x. If I add those together, that will give me negative 7x. And then negative 4 times negative 3 is a positive 12. So we multiplied those two together, and then we have our x plus 2. And again, this is all going to equal 0. All right? So now remember, one of my suggestions to you was that we take this and we move it over here. So we're going to take our x plus 2 and put it down here and multiply the old-fashioned way, like an old 3-digit times 2-digit number. So 2 times 12, that's a plus 24. 2 times negative 7x, that is negative 14x. All right, and 2 times x squared, that is 2x squared. And then remember, we kind of go and we're going to multiply those two, and it should go under the x, which, as you can see, it does. All right, so then we know that x times 12 is positive 12x. X times negative 7x is negative 7x squared. And then x times x squared is x cubed. Again, I'm going to now add all of those together, so I'll get x cubed. 2x plus a negative 7 is negative 5x squared. Negative 14x plus 12x is negative 2x. And then we'll have the plus 24. And now, remember, it said to write it as a function f. So we're just going to put on the front here, we're going to put f of x is equal to, and there is our answer. Okay, so that one should help you with the first two problems on your homework tonight. Okay, the second one, we need to remember the irrational conjugates theorem. And we talked about conjugates earlier in the year. So what it's saying, the theorem says that let f be a polynomial function with rational coefficients, and let a and b be rational numbers such that the square root of b is irrational, and if a plus b is a rational zero of f, then the conjugate, which would be a minus the square root of b, is also a zero of f. So if they give you one of them, you have to automatically think of the other one. All right? So example 5b, write a polynomial function f of least degree that has rational coefficients, a leading coefficient of 1, and the zeros 2 and 3 plus the square root of 7. All right? So, like I just told you, since 3 plus the square root of 7 is a 0, well, let's go ahead and write that down. Since 3 plus the square root of 7 is equal to 0, is a 0, then 3 minus the square root of 7 is also a 0. All right, so knowing that, just like I did with the earlier one, now I have 3 zeros here. I have 2, I have 3 plus the square root of 7, and I have 3 minus the square root of 7. So that is telling us we have x is equal to 2, x is equal to 3 plus the square root of 7, and x is equal to 3 minus the square root of 7. Okay, so again, just like we did before, these were our answers. We're going to now move them over. So when I move them over, I'm going to have x minus 2 is equal to 0. I'm going to have x, and again, I'm taking all of that together. So I'll have x minus 3 plus the square root of 7 is equal to 0. And then I have x minus 3 minus the square root of 7 is equal to 0. Okay? So now I'm going to group those all. So now I'm going to have x minus 2 times x minus 3 plus the square root of 7. And then I'll have x minus 3 minus the square root of 7 is equal to 0. Okay, so now here's the trick. What I want you to do here is I want you to now, instead of having the x minus, notice how I have the 3 plus root 7, 3 minus root 7 together. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to instead regroup them this way, which a property that you learned a long time ago allows you to do. All right? So now if I do that, I can now have x minus 2, and now I have x minus 3 plus the square root of 7, and then I have x minus 3, notice how those are grouped together, minus the square root of 7. All right? So now when we regrouped it, now what do I have here, ladies and gentlemen? If you look at it, I have a plus here and I have a minus there. What happens is we end up with a difference of squares. So remember, the first one we're going to keep as x minus 2. On this one here, if I foiled it, oops. Okay. All right. If I foiled it, then I would have x minus 3 squared minus 7. All right, because the square root of 7 times the square root of 7 equals 7. And we're going to set that equal to 0. Now we're going to take what we have here and we're going to simplify this. So remember, x minus 3 squared is equal to x minus 3 times x minus 3. So you're going to FOIL that, and if you FOIL that, then you'll get x minus 2. And then remember, I'm FOILing this part right here. That'll give us x squared minus 6x plus 9 minus 7 is equal to 0, or x minus 2, and then simplify this one, x squared minus 6x plus 2, because 9 minus 7 is 2. And again, that will equal 0. And just like we did on the previous one there, I'm going to take this x plus 2 and I'm going to move it down here. All right, so let me get rid of that part. So I'm going to take the x minus 2, and again, I'm going to multiply it like 3-digit and 2-digit multiplication. So again, if I do that, I'll have negative 4. I'll have negative 2 times negative 6. That will give me a plus 12x. Negative 2 times x squared will give me a negative 2x squared. Remember, I'm going to now take and go like this, right? And if I do that, x times 2 is a plus 2x. And then I have x times negative 6x, which will give me negative 6x squared. And then x times x squared is x cubed. And again, just like we did above, we're going to add those up. So I'll get x cubed, negative 8x squared, plus 14x minus 4. Remember, instead of saying it equals to 0 now, they told us to write it as a function. So I'll have to write that as f of x equals, and then you are done. So again, when it says leading coefficient of 1, well, we do have that because remember, our leading coefficient would be right here, and it is 1. Now, those of you who go on to pre-calculus, you'll see how you can make it so it's not a 1, but that's for another class. All right, I gave you enough here to do your 6 questions. So hopefully I'll see that homework soon. And those of you who are here, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. Tell your friends if they're not doing it to get online and start doing some work. All right, have a nice day, and I'm done.